Rejected by everyone, this single mom's unexpected encounter with a millionaire CEO changed everything. In the small town of Maplewood, Kansas, Sarah felt the hot breath of rejection whispering daily. With bills mounting and life pressing her down, the bitter taste of despair clung to her. Each morning, she strapped on her familiar, battered apron, ready to serve the same weary customers at the diner. Their faces told stories of struggle, and every tip she collected felt hard-won yet insufficient. She often counted spare coins at the close of her shifts, her heart racing with anxiety as she worried if she had enough for groceries or school supplies for her 2 kids. The familiar cycle loomed, each day a grueling reminder of how far she was from her dreams, yet, amidst the monotony and struggles, life took an unexpected turn. One gray morning, a sharp-suited stranger walked into the diner, his polished demeanor radiating confidence. Nathan, a millionaire CEO from Chicago, sat in Sarah's section, a refreshing sight among the usual patrons. Their eyes met as she refilled his coffee, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt seen, not just as a waitress, but as someone important. Her heart thumped inexplicably, igniting a flicker of hope. A dream long buried now seemed within grasp. Their conversations unfolded over cups of coffee, revealing layers of understanding and shared vulnerability. Nathan was drawn to her relentless spirit, while Sarah found comfort in his encouragement to pursue her unfinished dreams of a degree. Yet as her heart soared, a wave of fear crashed over her. The thought of taking on classes felt paralyzing. What if her kids felt abandoned as she chased fleeting ambitions? Those quiet voices in her head began whispering doubts, each one heavier than the last. Would her children see her as selfish, or would it show them the importance of pursuing one's dreams? The tension hung like a noose, tightening as Sarah wrestled with familiarity and uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure mounted as Nathan continued nudging her forward, planting seeds of ambition she had long cast aside. But with each passing moment came increasing tension from his rival at work, a corporate shark who recognized her presence as a potential threat. Sarah started to feel the weight of expectation, her heart racing with dread. Could she bear the brunt of corporate gamesmanship that had nothing to do with her? The stakes were rising as they ventured into something deeper, forcing her to confront the agonizing question: was she ready to step into the light that Nathan was offering, or retreat back into the shadows of her predictable routine? As Sarah gathered her strength, uncertainty gripped her. She stood on the edge of a precipice, the cacophony of doubts drowning out the sound of her own heartbeat. Torn between ambition and motherhood, she felt like an outsider in her own life. Would she dare to embrace a new path, risking everything for something that shimmered just out of reach? The walls closed in, igniting fear within her, an emotion she thought she had learned to conquer. But this was different. Something primal stirred, threatening to consume her. With each breath, the tension stretched like a taut wire. Would she gather the courage to step forward into her unknown, or would she choose the safety of her heart-wrenching familiarity? Every thought spiraled toward an unresolved yearning, leaving her on the edge of a cliff with no safety net. Time stood still, the room around her fading into silence. Sarah felt trapped between two worlds, one a shadowy lull of the diner, the other an unsteady promise held by a stranger. The moment hovered, each heartbeat echoing, now it is time to decide. Just as determination flickered within her, a shadow loomed nearby, watching, waiting. The silence thickened, pregnant with possibility. What would she choose? As moments passed, the atmosphere in the diner shifted palpably. Sarah stood motionless, her pulse quickening as the weight of potential decisions bore down on her. She could feel Nathan's expectant gaze lingering on her. It ignited both fear and resolve deep inside her. The noise of the diners faded into a muffled backdrop, and suddenly, it wasn't just about plates and coffee spills. It was about purpose, identity, and the daunting step into her future. Sarah remembered the dreams she held tightly as a young girl, the visions of walking across a graduation stage, the sense of accomplishment blooming like spring after a long winter. Now, 10 years no, a lifetime later, all of that had slipped away beneath layers of responsibility. But Nathan's encouragement teased something dormant awake. Was she really willing to let her past dictate her future? Finally, with a deep, steadying breath, Sarah spoke, barely above a whisper, maybe I can look into classes. The thought sparked a warmth in her chest that flooded out the doubts. She had no idea what that would entail, or how she would navigate her already crowded life, but there was power in the choice. Seeing Nathan's encouraging smile bolstered her fragile courage, but in the back of her mind, shadows loomed. The corporate realm Nathan belonged to wasn't just a world of promise. She had heard about the cuts and corporate betrayals, how cutthroat it could be. Her thoughts swirled as she considered the risks that came with her decision. Was she prepared for the possibility of backlash from rival executives or the relentless scrutiny that would come from stepping into a more ambitious role? The thought was dizzying. Immediately, her mind shifted to her children. They had always been her priority. Would they understand if she was suddenly less present? Would her pursuit of a degree make them proud or build a chasm between them? She envisioned her daughter watching as she pored over homework late at night, eyes wide with wonder. Maybe ambition wasn't selfish, perhaps it was a legacy. For the first time in what felt like years, Sarah felt a surge of determination. She recalled her interactions with Nathan, his stories of overcoming obstacles and pushing through adversity. She realized it wasn't just about him, it was about beginning to share that narrative of resilience with her own family. Just as she was about to let that determination fully consume her, Nathan's phone buzzed loudly on their table, pulling her from this moment of clarity. It was a reminder of a meeting. The tension in Sarah's chest spiked again, but alongside it came an unexpected sense of urgency. The choice was no longer just nebulous and abstract, it was about taking real steps into the life she envisioned. You know what? I think I need to make this work, she declared with newfound firmness. But doubt's familiar clutches still lingered at the edges of her resolve. Nathan met her gaze, a flicker of pride evident in his eyes. You can do this, Sarah, he said, his voice comforting yet commanding. It's time to show yourself what you're capable of. But the shadow watching from the corner intensified. Sarah sensed a critical moment approaching, one that could push her back into the shadows of her previous life or propel her into a newfound identity. The eyes of the corporate world were starting to stare at her, measuring her promise and potential, but also her imperfections. In that instant, as Sarah solidified her intention, a figure stepped forward, a tall man in an expensive suit, lips curling into a challenging smirk. This was the rival, the corporate shark Nathan had alluded to, and he was sizing her up as if he'd just pegged her as the newest target. She felt the walls close in again, and felt every ounce of conviction lining her spine, steeling her to confront whatever was about to unfold. You're serious about pursuing this, aren't you? He taunted, confidence dripping from his every word. Just know, stepping into this world doesn't come without sacrifices. Are you really willing to risk everything? A moment of intense pressure settled in her chest, coiling like a snake ready to strike. The choice had been simple, a shift from thoughts to ambitions, but now, the reality of confrontation loomed heavy in the air. And as she stepped forward to respond, she knew one thing was clear, the time had come to face her fears head-on, not only about her ambitions but also about her ability to stand firm against injustices she had long watched from the sidelines. The game had just begun, and she was ready to play. The man's smirk widened, a cruel confidence exuding from him as he leaned slightly closer. The ambience of the diner, once warm and familiar, turned cold under the brightness of harsh, fluorescent lights. Sarah's heart raced. It wasn't just his sarcasm that bothered her, it was the implication that she didn't belong in this new world she was trying to enter. I'm willing to risk everything, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Each word was deliberate, echoing the resolve that had built up inside her. The room around them faded into insignificance as her focus sharpened on this moment. This was not a game she was willing to lose. Everything. He chuckled, the sound rife with mockery. Let us see if that's true. You have a family to think of, don't you? How noble of you to prioritize your ambitions when you should be taking care of them. His words cut deep, planting seeds of doubt she had always fought against. Her children were her priority, but wasn't it possible that pursuing her dreams could elevate them? Sarah took a step back, feeling the earth shift beneath her. She glanced at Nathan, searching for support. His eyes reflected an understanding that urged her to hold her ground, to resist the urge to retreat. Ambition doesn't diminish my role as a mother, she countered, forcing herself to meet the man's gaze. In fact, it can enhance it. I want my children to see me as someone who strives for more, who challenges herself. For a moment, uncertainty danced along her spine, but she pushed it aside. The corner of the man's mouth twitched. How quaint. But tell me this, when the late nights of study overwhelm you, when the stress affects your ability to care for them, will they still admire you? Or will they see a mother who abandoned them for her own aspirations? His question hit her like a hammer, shattering the facade of confidence she had just constructed. What if her pursuit of education compromised her ability to parent? The shadows of her past of juggling work, life, and children crept back into her thoughts. Using a deep breath, she steadied herself, shoving aside the doubts. I'm not abandoning them. I'm trying to secure a better future for all of us. I want them to know they can fight for their dreams, just like I am. The man stepped back, surprised by her assertiveness. His demeanor shifted slightly, perhaps unsure of how to confront this unexpected resistance. She felt a glimmer of power within herself, already developing a strategy in her mind. This confrontation was an opportunity, a revelation of her capabilities that she had long suppressed. Fine, he replied, his voice dripping with disdain. Prove me wrong, then. The world is ruthless, especially in this arena. You'll need more than just dreams and courage to survive. What makes you think you have what it takes? Because I won't let people like you keep me from trying, she shot back, the words spilling forth with a fierceness that surprised her. You underestimate what might unfold when someone refuses to bow to threats and intimidation. The edge in her voice served as an awakening, each accusation leveled against her was met with a firm rebuttal. This was her initiation into a world that had previously felt beyond her reach, a testament to her ability to navigate confrontations. She noticed Nathan straightening beside her, his expression one of admiration that filled her with warmth, yet, the man turned, still unfazed, his eyes gleaming with calculated machinations. Good luck, then. You'll need it. He stepped away, blending back into the bustle of the diner, leaving an echo of his challenging presence in the air. The momentary victory settled in her chest, igniting sparks of excitement and fear. Could she really stand strong against the forces that sought to diminish her journey? The stakes were clear. Nathan took her arm gently, his voice low but charged with energy. You handled that well. This is your first battle, but there are many more to come. They won't be easy. Sarah nodded, absorbing his words. An unexpected resolve surged within her, intertwining with the fear of failure that still lingered in the back of her mind. She knew this was just the beginning. The corporate landscape was fraught with dangers, yet she had just witnessed her own strength in confrontation. As they departed the diner, her mind raced with the possibilities of the path ahead. Classes, networking, and confronting her own limitations all loomed before her, ripe with potential. But before she could fully embrace her next steps, her phone buzzed a notification about an upcoming corporate meeting where decisions would be made that directly affected her ambitions. An avalanche of adrenaline surged within her. The time for planning was over. She was on the precipice of a new chapter, ready to take actionable strides into her educational pursuit, but the looming meeting beckoned for immediate focus. Turning to Nathan, she felt determination harden her resolve. I need to prepare for this meeting, she stated, her voice steady. Every encounter from now on counts. It's time to show them what I'm made of. And as she gathered her thoughts, an unexpected thrill washed over her, solidifying her purpose. She was ready to engage in this game, to take risks, and to rise above opposition. The pressure was mounting, but Sarah was learning that pressure could forge diamonds, and she was determined to sparkle. Her determination thrummed electric beneath her skin, but a heavy weight loomed over her consciousness. What sacrifices would this commitment demand? As she left the diner, she knew one thing: clarity came at a price, and the path was only beginning to unfold before her. The corporate meeting loomed ahead, each tick of the clock echoing Sarah's racing heartbeat. She sat at her kitchen table, piles of papers surrounding her, a mix of notes, research on the company, and projections that felt nebulous. The lingering conversation from the diner replayed in her mind like a haunting melody, turning the excitement into a pressure cooker of anxiety. What if she was not enough? What if they saw her not as a contender, but merely a background player in a game she was woefully unprepared for? The man's words haunted her. Could she balance everything, from professional aspirations to being the mother her children deserved? The stakes felt impossibly high. She took a deep breath, drawing strength from her newfound resolve. This meeting represented a pivotal moment. It wasn't merely about her ambitions, it was about modeling resilience for her children. She envisioned them watching her, their wide eyes reflecting her determination, and it fueled her spirit. How could she communicate effectively, showcasing her worth in a room full of seasoned professionals? Her fingers danced nervously across her notes. She closed her eyes, visualizing herself stepping confidently into that meeting room, each stride exuding authority. But could she translate that image into reality? "Focus," she murmured, shaking her head to dispel the self-doubt. "You know your stuff. Prepare." With that mantra, she zeroed in on her notes, dissecting every subject matter to ensure clarity. The pursuit of knowledge had awakened something dormant within her, a hunger for understanding, a drive to master her domain. As the hours slipped away, she transformed anxiety into preparation. She practiced articulating her thoughts to herself, rehearsing with vigor, each repetition sharpening her confidence. The kitchen became her battleground, where she fortified her arguments and refined her points. She could envision the faces around that meeting table, envisioning their expressions as she delivered her vision and the strategies she planned to implement. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Nathan. "You ready for tomorrow? Remember, it's not just about impressing them. It's your moment to claim your space. Lift your chin high." His words acted as an anchor, bringing her back to her core. It wasn't about pleasing others, it was about standing firm in her truths and fighting for her place. With one final glance at her notes, a flicker of excitement arose within her. Opportunities erupted like fireworks in her mind. Her journey was not just about her ambitions, but about the path she would forge for her children. She wanted them to see that dreams required grit, that resilience was an essential facet of success. As she locked her documents away, a sense of clarity washed over her. She would approach the meeting not as an imposter, but a trailblazer. This newfound understanding illuminated her purpose, revealing the depths of her capabilities. The morning dawned bright, a stark contrast to the storm swirling within her thoughts. Layers of sleep faded away as anticipation surged. She dressed with intention, choosing her outfit as a reflection of her resolve. No more hiding. Today, she would embrace her aspirations. That in the meeting room, she entered with a calm confidence that surprised even her. The atmosphere was electric, filled with familiar faces that ignited a spark of determination. As she took her seat, the meeting began, and the tension simmered with possibility. Sarah sensed the energy in the room shifting in her favor, igniting her own flames of ambition. But as the discussion unfolded, she quickly recognized the dynamics at play. Voices clashed, opinions diverged, and a familiar figure appeared, the man from the diner. His confident demeanor was unmistakable. This time, however, the fear of confrontation had faded into a raw excitement to take her stand. The moment of truth was at hand. Her chance to confront the naysayers was imminent, and the landscape of the meeting shifted beneath her feet, allowing her to glimpse the potential for influence and control. With every heartbeat, she felt the pressure to mold her thoughts. Yet another question emerged in her mind: What if this confrontation was not merely a challenge, but an opportunity to change the very course of her trajectory? As the conversation swirled, she prepared to speak, ready to diffuse doubts and ignite support for her vision. But a knot of uncertainty tugged at her, revealing the need to navigate the nuances of this space with care. Sarah inhaled deeply, ready to break the silence, determined to articulate her perspective and stake her claim. Yet, the weight of opposing viewpoints began to loom larger as the confrontation drew closer. The stakes were escalating, the moment electrifying, and she felt the rush of clarity. Would she seize this moment, or would the fear of failure pull her back? The time had come to face the challenges ahead. This confrontation was not simply about asserting her position, it was about proving to herself the strength she was beginning to understand. Would she embrace this critical moment or allow it to slip through her fingers like so many before? As the discussion continued to unfold, Sarah readied herself to unleash the voice she had unearthed within. What was about to transpire would define her journey. There was no turning back now. The atmosphere inside the meeting room was thick with tension. Voices hesitated, arguments buzzed like the hum of an electric current, and all eyes gravitated toward the center of the table where Sarah sat, heart pounding but mind racing with clarity. This was her moment. In an instant, the room quieted, the chatter fading into nothingness as the weight of expectation settled on her shoulders. The man from the diner turned to her, an all too familiar smirk on his face, and she could feel the challenge emanating from him. Her hands, initially balled into fists beneath the table, relaxed. She inhaled deeply, ready to shatter the silence that seemed to suffocate her purpose. I believe we need to discuss the potential benefits of integrating our virtual project with the current market analytics data, she began, deliberately keeping her voice steady. Not only would this streamline our processes, but it also presents a unique opportunity to expand our reach on social media platforms. We can leverage increased engagement to drive sales. Her eyes scanned the table. Some seemed intrigued, others skeptical, but she pressed on, aware that she was entering a treacherous territory. The words flowed, each sentence stronger than the last as she laid out her vision. She explained her strategies with precision, addressing potential pitfalls and emphasizing the long-term value her plan could deliver. Amid the whirlwind of conversation, she noticed the man from the diner lean back in his chair. His earlier confidence began to falter. This was her opportunity. As she wrapped up her point, she shifted her focus directly to him, acknowledging his influence without hesitation. You may think that conventional methods are sufficient, but adaptation is key. We have to evolve or risk being left behind in this competitive landscape. For a moment, silence enveloped the room again. Then, she saw cracks in his facade, the spark of irritation in his eyes hinted at her unexpected impact. The audacity she displayed ignited a fire within her. She was no longer an underdog struggling to find her footing but a contender ready to stake her claim. Just as she felt the momentum swinging in her direction, voices erupted once more, drowning out her triumph. The discussion polarized into factions. Critics voiced their disdain for innovation, and defenders sought to rally around tradition, leading to a chaotic cacophony of opinion. Sarah fought against the rising tide of doubt as her heart raced anew. Were they really not ready to embrace change? Moments passed, and she questioned whether her courage had been misplaced. The earlier whirlwind of excitement dulled with the weight of their skepticism, yet her resolve began to harden. Drawing on the energy in the room, she stood her ground. Disruption isn't easy, but it's necessary. We owe it to ourselves and our customers to think beyond the confines of what has always worked. Her voice resonated with authority now, bolder and more persuasive. The dining experience played back in her mind. That man's challenging words helped crystallize her vision and prepare her for this very moment. As heads began to nod, Sarah realized she was challenging not only the opinions around her but her internal fears as well. She was learning to navigate the complexities of professional discourse, transforming her apprehension into strength. Conversations once led by fear now demonstrated courage, igniting a deeper passion within her. Let us consider a pilot program, she proposed, her voice unwavering. A tangible experiment that could showcase the results without jeopardizing current operations. The room erupted into low murmurs, discussion crackling like a live wire. Yet as the meeting ventured into discussions of logistics and feasibility, Sarah couldn't help but feel a shadow linger over her newfound confidence. There was still the man from the diner, a quiet storm in her peripheral vision, and she knew the real confrontation was yet to unfold. What if he didn't accept her shift, or worse, undermined her efforts? Just as she felt the first currents of self-doubt joining forces with anxiety, an unexpected hand shot out beside her. Nathan. He stood steady, adding weight to her proposal, and for the first time, an ally had fortified her efforts. As the debate raged on, Sarah's realization was striking. Her strengths illuminated her true capability, paving a path not just for herself, but potentially for her children. However, the battle had only just begun. What would she ultimately learn about herself as she confronted the giants of this corporate jungle? She understood that her journey transcended this meeting. It spiraled into the unknown, leaving her at the cusp of deeper revelations. The time for merely talking was over. Would she rise with the storm or lose her footing amidst the waves of skepticism that threatened to engulf her? As discussions shifted to final thoughts and resolutions, Sarah sensed a pivotal decision loomed ahead, one that could redefine not only her relationship with her colleagues but her own self-worth. With a heartbeat echoing in her ears, she prepared for the next wave. Was she ready to confront the man from the diner directly, or would she retreat to the shadows once more? The defining moment was closing in. The buzz of discussion waned as Sarah's heart raced with anticipation, a knot of tension coiling in her stomach. What had begun as a bold attack against the norm now felt like an uphill battle, the naysayers sharpening their darts of criticism. Nathan's unwavering support flared her hope, but the specter of the man from the diner loomed larger with each passing moment, a challenge that beckoned her to confront him head-on. The longer they debated, the more she understood that her earlier confidence, however exhilarating, stemmed from a newfound sense of self. This was the pivotal moment where she not only had to defend her idea but fortify her belief in her own capabilities. As she leaned into the dialogue, she realized the meeting room had transformed into a crucible, where opinions weren't just exchanged but forged in the fires of discourse. Navigating the shifting currents of the conversation, Sarah analyzed the different viewpoints, honing in on the critics. They were skeptical, relying on past successes as their shield against innovation. She recognized their fears. It was easier to cling to the familiar than to embrace the unknown. Yet, surrendering to that mindset would stifle progress. The company's stagnation hung heavy in the air, but she knew if she pressed on, she risked not only dissent but potential isolation. Steeling herself, she turned to them. I understand the hesitance, but isn't our track record exactly what constrains us? We're limiting ourselves by adhering to what has worked. Surely, we want to be pioneers instead of relics. The words burst forth with an urgency that reflected her deep-seated convictions. As their gazes wavered, Sarah felt the momentum slowly shifting. She could practically feel the thought processes churning, the wheels of skepticism beginning to turn. The man from the diner remained inscrutable, his eyes narrowing, possibly plotting his countermove, but she pressed on. What if we don't experiment, and our competitors run away with the market? What if they take the risks while we complacently sit back? This isn't just about us, it's about our clients who deserve more than the same old story. Her voice resonated, laden with a fierce determination that emanated from somewhere deep within her, a reservoir of strength she had scarcely tapped before. Amid the exchanges, a critical thought occurred to her. This was no mere meeting, it was an opportunity to reclaim her narrative, redefine her role not just as an employee but as a driving force. The realization sparked a fire, illuminating the hidden potential she had possessed all along, a potential that clamored for expression. Sarah turned towards Nathan, who nodded in affirmation, sensing the shift in the room aiding her momentum. His supporting presence felt like an anchor, solidifying her resolve. Yet, before she could revel in the moment's warmth, the man from the diner cleared his throat, all eyes sharpening on him in anticipation. Sarah, he began, leaning forward slightly, your passion is contagious, but innovation comes with risk. Our clients expect stability. Do you seriously think they'll embrace unpredictability, no matter how enticing your proposals are? His tone felt smooth, almost condescending, as if he were deftly maneuvering through her growing self-assuredness. she sensed the challenge like a gauntlet thrown down at her feet. The juxtaposition of his polished demeanor against her burgeoning grit electrified the atmosphere. Instead of recoiling, she felt emboldened. Was her narrative about those very risks, about rewriting expectations? She stood tall, managing to clasp her hands together to steady the slight tremors. Sometimes, to redefine stability, we must embrace unpredictability, she countered, a hint of defiance infusing her voice. We could pilot a program without pursuing massive upheaval. Perhaps a measured approach would alleviate some fears. His features flickered with surprise, no longer armed with certainty. The shift was palpable. She was no longer merely defending her idea, she was reclaiming control of the narrative, feeding off the atmosphere, and shaping her destiny. As the meeting's discussions shifted toward logistics, Sarah's mind whirled with possibilities. The man from the diner had issued a challenge, but it was her response that had unveiled her inner tenacity. Shadows of doubt would always linger, ready to creep in and seize her resolve, but she had begun carving out a path illuminated by courage and determination. With one final glance at her ally Nathan, she acknowledged that this meeting might just be the prologue to something greater, a realization that she needed not only to advocate for change but to embody it. But she could still taste the uncertainty in the air, knowing this was just the beginning of the struggle ahead. As discussions drew closer to an impasse, her thoughts whirled. Could she navigate the minefield of bureaucracy, battle entrenched ideologies, and prove herself against a formidable opponent? The stakes were rising, and she had only scratched the surface of the challenges to come. What new revelations awaited her as she faced her fiercest opponent, yet the very doubts that had once shackled her ambitions? Sarah walked out of the meeting room with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety swirling within her. The airflow felt different in the corridors. It was as if the walls themselves were breathing the air of change that she had so fervently advocated for. But with the excitement came an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. She had come close to breaking through barriers, yet the path ahead remained fraught with obstacles. The man from the diner remained a specter in her mind, his skepticism echoing in the recesses of her thoughts. Could she truly navigate the entrenched ideologies that had frozen her company in its tracks? Each heartbeat thrust more questions into her consciousness, amplifying the weight of her self-doubt. What if they don't accept my ideas? What if he turns the tide? As she passed by the open office cubicles, she noticed her colleagues' hushed conversations, glances exchanged with curiosity and perhaps disapproval. She felt the prick of judgment, and her heart sank. Most of them had never seriously entertained innovation. They were barometers of the past, measuring success by what had always worked. Did she really want to stand isolated on this island of new ideas? Yet amidst her internal turmoil, a flicker of resolve ignited. Sarah approached her desk, each step grounded in a newfound understanding. She realized she wasn't merely fighting for her ideas, she was fighting for her identity, a woman unwilling to adhere to the limitations imposed upon her. She wasn't here to fit into a mold, she was here to reshape the very framework of success. Pulling out her notebook, she began scribbling feverishly, ideas flowing as she outlined a proposal for a pilot program designed to address her colleagues' concerns while still incorporating her vision for innovation. The act of writing became a balm, soothing her racing thoughts, allowing clarity to crystallize. Each point she drafted transformed the specter of doubt from an immobilizing force to a motivating challenge. With every stroke of her pen, she plotted out a strategic plan that showcased a balance of risk and reward, one that retained the core essence of the company while urging it toward the dynamic changes it desperately needed. This was her moment, not to just impose a new vision, but to build a bridge that connected the past to a new future. But even as she devised this plan, the underlying anxiety still nibbled at her focus. The man from the diner had predicted rejection. What if she didn't generate the support she envisioned? What if her colleagues reaffirmed their commitments to conventional methodologies? The potential for failure clawed at her, threatening to unravel the courage she had fought so hard to cultivate. Just then, Nathan arrived at her workstation, his cheerful demeanor a beacon against her swirling uncertainty. "I saw how you handled yourself in there, Sarah. That was bold," he exclaimed, leaning against the edge of her desk, exuding an energy that brightened the shadows lingering in her thoughts. "Thanks, but I'm not sure it was enough. I still feel, exposed, she admitted, fatigue trailing behind her words. That's how real change begins, feeling exposed and vulnerable, yet refusing to yield. You took the first step towards proving what's possible. You're shifting the narrative, not only for yourself but for the entire team, he reassured her. Encouraged, she shared her plan, detailing how she envisioned the pilot program working within the existing framework, slowly easing the group's apprehension. Nathan's nodding approval fueled her confidence, but a nagging thought lingered. Was she merely leaning too heavily on his support to prop up her resolve? Later that day, as she reconnected with her idea, a sudden fear crystallized. What if she felt compelled to act decisively rather than solely reacting to others' reactions? With every moment, any sense of complacency was growing increasingly intolerable, morphing her ambition into a live wire of purpose. That night, as darkness settled outside her window, she acknowledged that the next confrontation with her colleagues was unavoidable and essential. She would not yield to the inertia of skepticism. Rather, she would stand firm against the tide, not needing their comfort to validate her purpose. The enormity of her goals crashed against her fears, galvanizing her focus. With a deep breath, she recalled the gaze of the man from the diner, a reminder of the formidable opposition she faced. But it was time to reshape that confrontation into something transformative. Sarah lit the candle of resolve within her. The next day would be decisive, but beneath the bubbling anxiety, something new began to burgeon. She was ready to embrace the fight, confront her adversaries, and reclaim her narrative. What revelations awaited as her colleagues faced this new proposal? Would she find kinship in her fears, or would she become the change that many resisted, ultimately standing alone? The stakes had never felt higher, and as dawn approached, Sarah knew she was teetering on the precipice of transformation. The morning sun broke through the blinds, casting rays that seemed to amplify Sarah's unease. Each beam felt like a spotlight illuminating her insecurities as she stood before her bathroom mirror, running a hand through her hair, willing herself to believe the conviction she had kindled the night before. The reflection staring back held a mix of determination and trepidation, a woman on the verge of something critical. Today was not just another workday. It marked the culmination of her efforts, the unveiling of her pilot program proposal before the leadership team. Every detail needed to be flawless, every argument, unassailable. She equipped herself with data that showcased potential gains, testimonials from industry leaders, and a clear roadmap to guide her colleagues through what undoubtedly would feel like a treacherous transition into innovation. But with each calculated preparation came a wave of doubt that threatened to drown her resolve. The skepticism that dwelled within the hearts of others persisted, mirroring the skepticism of the man at the diner. Was she just a footnote in a much larger story, destined to drown in the weight of her colleagues' comfort with tradition? Arriving at the office, the familiar buzz of activity felt both invigorating and suffocating. She greeted Nathan, who caught her anxious expression and responded with a reassuring smile, offering a quick pat on the back. "You're ready for this. Remember, it's your vision. Own it." Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the conference room, her heels clicking against the polished floor, resonating in tandem with her heartbeat. The room was set, colleagues already settled in their chairs, their murmurs fading upon her entry. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. An awkward silence hovered for a moment, the tension palpable. She could see them assessing her, waiting to find chinks in her armor. "Today, I'm excited to present a proposal that I believe will position us for future growth and sustainability." With each slide on her presentation, she unveiled her strategy, detailing how embracing innovation could invigorate the company's stagnant structure. Her passion poured out as she illustrated potential revenue increases and new market penetrations. But, as she progressed, she couldn't ignore the expressions swirling around the room, some nodding, others with arms crossed, discontent etched on their faces. A silent battle brewed between acceptance and the unknown. As questions began to surface, the veneer of support she had envisioned began to crack. "But this seems risky," one colleague interjected, his voice dripping with skepticism. "What if we lose the clients we currently have?" Sarah felt a tremor run through her, her mind instantly replaying the man's words from the diner. "Change is inherently risky," she countered, her voice firmer now. But maintaining the status quo has its own set of risks, ones we can't afford to ignore if we want to remain relevant. The dialogue deepened, emerging as a fierce discussion where allies and opponents emerged in their raw forms. Each challenge thrown her way dug beneath her skin, but instead of crumbling, something within her flared up, a resolve ignited by adversity. She could sense Nathan's encouraging gaze bolstering her as she deftly reframed their concerns, transforming every critique into an opportunity for dialogue. Each rebuttal became a stepping stone toward her ultimate goal. She started to notice her colleagues shifting their stances. The harder she fought for her vision, the more they leaned in, curiously drawn toward her passion. Yet, just when she began to feel momentum, a somber voice broke through, its tone a stark reminder of the doubts she had suppressed. "What about failure, Sarah? What if nothing changes? What if this whole plan blows up in your face?" The air thickened at that moment, and she found herself standing on a precipice of honesty. "I may fail, we all might. But if we don't try, we guarantee that nothing changes," she replied, her heart pounding in her chest. Her assertiveness hung in the air, like a dare thrown at the feet of those who had doubted her. What if failure was not her enemy, but a partner on this journey? The silence enveloping the room now felt heavy, but beneath it pulsed an understated energy, curiosity, shared vulnerability, and perhaps the spark of acceptance. As Sarah concluded her presentation with a confident smile, she unexpectedly found herself looking beyond fear or failure. She saw a path barely illuminated but unmistakably present. Would they embrace it together? The meeting ended with deliberations on her proposal, yet Sarah felt a shift. The tide of skepticism had begun to wane. She stepped out feeling changed, no longer solely a proponent of innovation but an architect of transformation within herself. As she exited the room, though, she couldn't shake a new, persistent question lingering at the back of her mind: did she possess the resilience to embrace whatever response awaited her? How far was she willing to go to advocate for the change she so deeply believed in? The echo of uncertainty played once more, but now it wound into an intricate web of possibilities. A confrontation loomed ahead, with her colleagues more engaged than ever, yet one thought haunted her: what lay beneath their agreement, hidden among the currents of unspoken discontent. As the day progressed, Sarah knew this was merely the beginning, the real battle was yet to come. An unsettling restlessness filled Sarah's chest as she navigated the day that followed the presentation. The amalgamation of cautious optimism and dread kept her in a state of hyper-awareness. A fresh sense of accountability surged with every glance she stole at her colleagues during their daily team meeting. Were they truly on her side, or just placating her for the moment? As she took her place at the conference table, she observed their faces, searching for signs of lingering doubt. Nathan offered a nod, just enough to provide momentary reassurance, but Sarah felt the weight of unspoken tensions. One colleague, Fiona, remained particularly aloof, her arms crossed defensively, eyebrows knit together. "Let's discuss the feedback from yesterday," Sarah began, her voice even despite the inner turmoil. "I want to know where we stand regarding the proposal." Fiona was quick to respond, her words sharp. "The risks aren't just something we can sweep under the rug, Sarah. We're talking about major investments here, and there's no guarantee of return. What's your plan if it fails?" A cold wave of uncertainty crept through Sarah. Did her colleagues not see the importance of this leap? Encapsulated by fear, they would rather hold on to a shrinking lifeboat than venture into the vast ocean of possibility. This was a pivotal moment. She could either retreat into defensiveness or assert herself with conviction. She took a deep breath, and even as doubt loitered, something shifted within her, a flickering spark of resolve. "It's true that risk comes with this proposal, but what we stand to lose by not innovating far outweighs the uncertainties we face. This isn't just a numbers game, it's about our future as a company. We need to be willing to adapt." Fiona uncrossed her arms slightly, a hint of curiosity emerging in her steely gaze. "Adapt or die, right?" Nathan added, supporting Sarah's stance. But as the dialogue continued, lingering skepticism permeated the room's atmosphere. Despite her growing assertiveness, Sarah couldn't shake a gnawing realization that her colleagues' assurances could crumble at the first sign of adversity. How could she ensure her vision didn't just gain approval but firm commitment? After the meeting, Sarah withdrew to her office, her mind racing. Hours of anxiety wore her down until a vivid idea flickered to life. Empathy could be her secret weapon. She could change the narrative, bring her colleagues aboard not just through statistics and projections, but by aligning their personal stories with the changes he intended to drive. Determined, she sketched an outline of a meeting series, focus groups inviting her colleagues to share their fears and aspirations. Through their eyes, maybe she could illuminate a path where uncertainty transformed into collaboration. As she prepared for the new approach, Sarah felt a profound shift within her. Shying away from her worries of inadequacy, she welcomed the discomfort of vulnerability. This was not just about her idea but about shaping a shared future. With each adjustment she made to her plan, her confidence burgeoned, yet, amidst this internal transformation, a familiar shadow loomed, a quiet voice of doubt, casting shadows on her optimism. What if her colleagues didn't have the willingness to be vulnerable with her? What if they resisted the very change she was trying to foster? That night, Sarah sat down, allowing her thoughts to spiral. Persistent questions rattled in her mind, demanding answers she was not yet sure of. Did she have the strength to guide them through their fears? Was she ready for the pushback that could come from challenging long-held beliefs? Each doubt stirred her determination, fueling her resolve, but was she truly prepared for the emotional labor of leadership? As Sarah settled into her bed, sleep eluding her, she sensed an impending storm both internally and externally. One thing was clear: the next stage of her journey would demand more than professional finesse. It would require harnessing vulnerability as a strength, standing firm despite doubt. With dawn approaching, she felt the weight of her mission pulsating through her veins. The moment of truth was creeping closer. Would her colleagues be willing to embark on this journey with her, or would their fear of change remain an unbreakable barrier? The morning light poured through the window, illuminating Sarah's transformed resolve. She stood before the mirror with purpose. This was the day she would address the doubts that had clung to her colleagues and extinguish the fear she had carried herself. Each heartbeat echoed her newfound determination as she prepped for the focus group meetings she had proposed. Now, it was not just about presenting ideas. The stakes were profound. This was about building relationships amid resistance, illuminating their shared goals, and forging a community eager for progress. She dressed with intention, a blazer symbolizing her commitment to transformation, not only hers but for the entire team. As Sarah walked to the conference room, she sensed the undercurrents of skepticism from her colleagues. Yet, beneath that was a flicker of curiosity. The atmosphere was thick with apprehension as she welcomed them into the space, ready to dismantle their fears and doubts. "Thank you for joining me today," she began, her voice steady. "I know the proposal I presented stirred skepticism, and I genuinely appreciate the candid conversations we've had. Today, I'd like us to explore that further, not just on a theoretical level, but personally. How do our goals align with our fears?" The room was silent at first, eyes darting among each other. Then, Fiona leaned forward, brow knitted. "I guess we all have our reservations, don't we? The uncertainty about the direction the company is taking, it's daunting." "Exactly," Sarah replied, seizing the moment. "What's at stake collectively impacts us all individually. I'm here to learn about your fears, understand where you're coming from, and maybe we can reshape this vision together." The space shifted. Vulnerability was now the currency of discussion. As they shared their fears, a powerful realization emerged. Individual stories pooled together created a tapestry of shared uncertainty. Nathan's supportive presence in the room lent her strength as she unified their narratives beneath a collective ambition for meaningful change. "Think of how our personal journeys have shaped our perspectives," she encouraged. "What if, instead of seeing this as a threat, we recognized it as an opportunity? What if we find a way to bridge those gaps together?" The personal testimonies of ambition, fear, and hope began to flood in. They shared tales of past failures, of feeling unheard amid the corporate machinery, but also shared dreams for a brighter future. The conversation blossomed, infused with the energy of collaboration. Days turned into weeks as they held these focus sessions, slowly dismantling skepticism. Sarah felt herself growing stronger. Each shared moment allowed the team to frame uncertainty not as a barrier, but as stepping stones revealing opportunities. The narrative around change began shifting, from resistance to anticipation, a concerted effort to reclaim their destiny. As her colleagues rallied around a shared cause, Sarah's confidence blossomed, morphing vulnerability into strength. In the final meeting to discuss her pilot program, the room was alive with anticipation. Each voice chimed in, no longer steeped in skepticism, but rather infused with a collective desire to innovate. When the vote passed for implementation, overwhelming joy surged through Sarah. She had conquered not just the doubts of others, but also the gnawing nag of self-doubt that had shadowed her from the beginning. Weeks later, as she strolled through campus to pick up her children, pride swelled within her. She had balanced the demands of her role and her aspirations of being a mother while navigating uncharted professional waters. In her heart, she knew she had achieved what she once thought impossible: a successful proposal, a strengthened team, and a legacy of courage she could pass on to her children. As they embraced at the end of the day, she reflected on her journey, how she had transformed from a woman shackled by doubt into a leader poised for success. Those late nights held more than just studies, they cradled her ambivalence, transformed into unwavering resolve. She knew without a doubt that she would own this new chapter, continuing to learn and teach her children the importance of striving despite fears, a testament to the evolution that had unfolded within her. This moment was not just about pushing forward, it was about proving to herself that she was capable, recognized, and deserving of the place she had claimed within her professional realm. Now was the time to solidify these foundations, the moment to embrace the future that awaited her, ripe with untold possibilities. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your insights are valuable. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.